Okay, so this is now the demo of version 0.8 of our Black Hat demo for the RiskMandate. And there's a couple of really powerful new features that we have here. And let's start basically looking at how it works. So the scenario we're looking here is just an agent runs in production and can change something that matters. And you can see that we're going to see things at different altitudes, and there's this cool little chat operation. But let's first map this. So there's an AI agent running in production. Um, and let's say is there a named legal person who knows how to stop it. So let's say we have a team that is kind of loosely, and if you had to stop it right now, could you? And the actual review, let's say yes, eventually. Nice. So what we now have, you can see, is basically three risks, right? We have three risks created that the fact that we have an agent that runs in production, the fact that we have not verified the stop path, and if it goes wrong, whose call it is, right? And then what we map about this is then the CISO exec views of this. So now you can see that a change capable automation is live in its state and registered, no verified kill path of change capable, and stop authority unassigned. So we have these risks. We then elevate to the board, which basically really we talk about more business functional risks, right? And we may not be able to stop, and we need to basically implement this. So what's cool about this stuff, right, is that you can then have a risk register for each of these. So you can see that there's a risk register at each of these levels where we map the risks, the category, the likelihood, the owner, the blast radius. And again, all this will then evolve as we add more data into this, right? And then the logic is that it changes the language as we go into the board, right? And as we operate at higher level. And then we can actually see the chain, right? So we can go from, let's say, the operator, we can go from the question to the answer to the fact to the operator risk. And you can see that the risks are different for each of these boards, for these stakeholders. And what's interesting is that we could also see how it connects. So now, for example, for each of these risks, you could see the fact, then the operator, then the CISO, then the board, and the logic that each of these risks connects to the same one above, and each of these basically provides accountability, and each of these will be accepted once we add that level here, right? So, and we basically will be connecting this, and actually the idea needs to be different here, right? But it's already cool because we can already go and see for each of these risks, we can already see the kind of the statement, we can see who owns it, who connects the dots, why is it here, and this is a connection to the specific EU act, and then this is all the information we have about this particular risk. So you start to see that we see these things in these kind of like multiple dimensions, which is freaking cool, right? And again, you have this for each of the risks. So we start to connect these dots. Now, what's really cool about this latest version is that we also added this ability to talk to this. So we now added this chat environment here, so we can actually talk to them, and basically this is basically a chat environment that actually has access to this data and can even manipulate the data, right? So we can basically start asking questions. We can see, which risks he knows, what should we see it, and you can basically use different models here. You could also see kind of the size of the prompt, the scenario, the answers. So this is like showing you more visualization of everything that is actually going into the request. And now we can talk about it. So let's say I can say, okay, can you translate, or let's say provide a board view one paragraph of the current risks. So what's cool about it is that we can now start to integrate, and then there's a lot of cool ideas that we going to implement, and there's a bunch of tools that we can provide here, and then we start to think about the different workflows. Can you write this in for an CFO, for example? And then we start to explore the different possibilities, and that's kind of the core idea. But it's really cool that you can now iterate with the data in the kind of the risk operators that we have. And there's even, like I say, what tools do you have access to? And this is sort of the idea that this is the bit where you start to charge for this thing. So this is where we actually have the sort of the cost-based model, where the the risk dashboard is actually doesn't cost anything because it's all about graphs. And the next bit I'm going to add is how to actually visualize all this stuff and how to graph this and how to connect. But it's super powerful that we can already talk to this, and you can start to see the cost. Right, the cost is actually not that's 1 cent to create this. It's not that significant, right? So and this already you can see that this is basically the tools that we added to the chat that actually can manipulate already the UI, can read stuff, can even open a risk. So I can say, open, can you open risk, let's say 8, right? And this is basically going to send a message. There you go. See, you can see that we actually control the UI from here. So that opened up risk 8 in there. So that's actually pretty cool, right? So that was a good example of starting to use tool calls within this chat environment that we connect over there, which is a really powerful feature.